Welcome to Above Replacement Radio. I am your host, Chris Gianta. I might be becoming a bad baseball fan who can't enjoy the romantic things because of advanced statistics. 15 years from now, I want to be on the early baseball committee. Over there on the other side of the screen is Daniel Curran.
I literally have the Fangraphs hoodie, the baseball reference t-shirt, just repping some stats, you know what I'm saying?
It's not necessarily Hall of Fame. It's not necessarily above average, but we can guarantee you we are better than just the standard replacement level college sophomore.
And welcome to Above Replacement Radio, where we're talking baseball kind of whenever. I'm your host, Chris Gianta. Over there on my actual left, as you cannot see on YouTube, unfortunately, is Daniel Curran. How you doing, Daniel?
Chris, I'm doing very well today. It's one of my favorite days of the year for us because it's, nearing the start of the season. We got a couple weeks until spring training games start, and you know that we love spring training games here on ARR.
Yeah.
So you know what that means. We got to start looking ahead to this season. The offseason is over. All the free agents have signed. Sorry, Michael Wacha and Gary Sanchez.
Yeah.
But all the free agents have signed. So we know everything about what the teams are going to look like this year. And we're debuting our players to watch, which is, I spend the entire offseason looking at this. I've come up with a comprehensive list of players who will all do extremely well this year. None of them will flop, which is awesome because it's really good that we're both 100% on this every year.
Yeah, it's a real, if you're playing fantasy baseball, just listen to this because we're picking sleepers every time, and it's a 100% hit rate. Yeah. Batting 1,000, as they would call it.
Yep. Don't look at Carlos Hernandez's stats from last year.
Yeah. Definitely. Definitely don't look at
Brennan Davis.
Tim LeCastro's 2021, where he was DFA'd by the
worst team in the league,
by the team with the worst record in baseball.
Yeah.
But
look at Stephen Kwan's stats from last year. Look at Stephen Kwan. Look at Byron Buxton's 2021.
Yeah.
Who was your number one hit last year?
My number one, I had a lot of I had a starting rotation of threes last year, but I would have to look back.
Gotcha.
Prep 11. It was a November episode we did.
Yes, we did because it was after the World Series.
After the World Series, number one hit was Logan Gilbert.
That's a good one.
Yeah,
pretty good.
Yeah, ERA went down 1.48. We've prefaced this before. We like to try to kind of pick under the radar guys. A lot of the times they're younger guys too.
Mm-hmm.
That are potential breakout candidates.
I wonder how old my oldest player is today.
Yeah,
I'm actually very curious because I think all my players are on the younger side.
Yeah, and today is we break down the NL Central. Usually we're starting with a central team. However, this time it's actually based on a randomizer list that we that we put together. So we'll reveal what division we're doing next week. Luckily, we're able to do one division at a time this offseason because last year, there was the lockout, so most of the rosters were not finalized, so we couldn't really.
Yeah.
And also, we were doing if we started doing a preview at this time last year, it'd be like,
wow,
are we previewing? Are we?
You couldn't preview anything because it's we
Yeah.
didn't know what the teams looked like because so many guys, they didn't sign. Real quick, my oldest player, 3 of them going into their age 25 season.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I imagine I'm probably in a similar spot.
Yeah, not all of them are going to be like that. I am going to have some guys later down the line that are a little bit older, but today I happen to only have some very young guys.
Yeah. Last year we didn't know if there was a season to preview.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
That's true.
So
we were lucky enough to get 162 games. Because Major League Baseball almost missed their 7th deadline.
True.
to get an agreement done.
Well, yeah, because there was the initial deadline. They were like, okay, it's not going to be a 162 game season. And then next week,
they were like, actually, we could kind of do it this way if we get an agreement done by this day. And then they didn't, but they were like, well, we'll just keep going.
Yeah, we'll just tack on.
I'll never forget. It was 1:30 in the morning, and I was in my friend's suite, right across. I can literally see it right there.
Yeah.
And I'm like, Bob Nightingale was reporting like the 47th meeting in a row
Yep.
between, because it was the ballpark in Jupiter where like Dan Halem was walking from one side to the other. It's the like one of the MLB representatives, and like Tony Perez was doing the same thing. It was electric. It was so
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, it was great. It was great for baseball.
And then I was at that ballpark like a week later, and I was like, this is where it happened. It was so funny because the pictures were like reporters just setting up beach chairs like outside of the ballpark. Like they
Yeah.
weren't allowed in. Like there was like a little. So I was there, so I can tell you the scene. But like there's like a little fence where you can see like a small bit of the ballpark. You could see like third base and like left field ish, and you could just see like maybe like a 200-foot. What am I looking for? Like a 200-foot space where you could see players walking back and
Yeah.
forth. So that's what they were looking at.
Yeah. Yeah, that that sucked.
Yeah.
That really did.
Yep.
Yeah, great for baseball. Like you live for moments like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like those are the moments
You'll never forget. It's a where were you moment, and I remember where I was. I was right there.
Yeah, I
You
remember
can't see it on radio, but
where I learned the baseball season was happening was in American literature too.
nice. I was in the Mac lab
Yeah.
because it was a Wednesday,
and
which
why-
meant I had a lot to do that night and the next day. So
It
I
was-
was preparing.
It was March 10th. It was one of my sister's birthdays, so
Nice.
I'm sure she was psyched. She doesn't really watch baseball.
Yeah.
But yeah, so yeah, today is preview day for the NL Central. However, we do have one bit of news to get into. Not a free agent signing, but a signing nonetheless. It's an extension. It kind of shocked the baseball world in a
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
this did happen.
in a bit of a way. Yu Darvish was extended by the Padres for 6 years, $108 million. $108 million. It takes him through his age 42 season, which was the most eye-popping thing. That's what everyone's talking
Yeah.
about. However, yeah, the Padres did extend, potentially their best pitcher for 6 more years. The 6 numbers is the most shocking. What did you think of the deal?
I love it. I honestly really love this deal. I know I'm probably on like the right side of the bell curve
Mm-hmm.
with like people who absolutely love it more than the average person.
Yeah.
And let me explain to you why. Yu Darvish, yes, he is going into his age 36 season. The deal will begin at age 37. But as of right now, he hasn't shown any signs of slowing down. In 2022, he threw the 11th most innings in baseball with 194.2. And he also had the best strikeout to walk ratio of his career in a full season. I'm not counting 2020. I'm sorry. So I mean, he is still in ways getting better, and which means there's no real sign of him slowing down anytime soon. And how much time, Chris, have we spent on this show talking about what the future of the Padres after this season? Because the rotation is kind of bleh. I mean, you have like Seth Lugo in there, Nick Martinez, guys who, you're kind of questioning how reliable they can be given the expectations that the team has. Yu Darvish and Blake Snell are both free agents after this year, and really they only have, I think, is Jackson Merrill a pitching prospect? Is that the one like pitching prospect they have that
Yeah,
is
I don't
coming
know.
up? Because it doesn't look like they have much reinforcements on the way.
Yeah, exactly.
He's a shortstop. Never mind. He's not even a pitcher. Yeah, they don't even have, they depleted their farm system to build this team. They don't really have many reinforcements coming in. The rotation is already probably the biggest question mark on their team. You need guys like Yu Darvish to stay around if you're
Yeah.
going to compete in the future, because the team is obviously not in win now mode. They're in win now and the future mode.
True. Yeah, absolutely. Especially, when, they signed an 11-year deal this past offseason as well.
Yep.
It's it's not something they've really shied away from. They offered Judge 10 years. They offered Turner, I think, more than 11, but I know it was going to be the contract value was going to be higher than Lindor's. It's crazy. It's crazy the contracts they've signed and the contracts they've been rejected.
Yep.
Yep. With the Padres, but there's a lot of thoughts I have with this thing. My first thought is, or maybe the most important thought is, I wonder if the Padres have had any contact with Blake Snell about a potential extension, because you figure, maybe Yu Darvish is better now, but you figure the best candidate for a 6-year contract right now of a potential guy, a guy who's going to be a free agent after next year, you figure that's Blake Snell, so you maybe talk to him first. I wonder if his asking price is higher and a bit higher for them. He's coming off a very good year in which he had
a strong finish too.
Yeah, a 3.38 ERA, which is good, but more eye-poppingly a 2.80 FIP and 12 strikeouts per nine. And yeah, he finished amazingly.
He was like I think he was like the best pitcher in the league in the last month of the season. It was like Aaron Nola, Blake Snell.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying though. Like he's a better investment given his age and given how much he has left in the tank. Obviously we don't know how Yu Darvish is going to be because a lot of people are writing him off in his age 40 season as like, oh, he's going to be a fossil. He's going to be a below average pitcher. We don't know that. Like Yu Darvish, like I said, there's no signs of slowing down. He could still be very, serviceable at the very least.
Yeah.
Come, 2028.
That leads to my second takeaway. Yu Darvish has two people to thank. That's Justin Verlander and Max Scherzer.
Yep. Yeah.
Because if they weren't going out there balling out in their late 30s like they are now, Yu Darvish isn't getting this deal. I don't think so. I don't think even the Padres, I don't think they're handing out this deal. But Justin Verlander, went out and he was 39 winning that Cy Young.
Mm-hmm.
He goes out, wins the Cy Young at age 39 off a Tommy John surgery. It shows you what's kind of possible for pitchers. The Padres, no MLB team is signing a center fielder to their age 42 season. That's just not happening. That's just not how center fielders age. They're not at peak performance when they're in their late 30s typically. However, pitchers age a lot differently. I think sometimes we forget that when guys get signed late into their 30s like this. Like pitchers, they age differently. Max Scherzer has shown that. He was the highest paid pitcher last year, and if not for injuries, he would have been a Cy Young candidate.
Easily.
And it wasn't even like injuries took him back crazy. I think he still had like 140 or 150 innings pitched. He was really, really good and really valuable to the Mets. Justin Verlander, obviously, age 39 season, Cy Young for the Astros, and he just got signed to the Mets through his age 41 season at $43 million a year. So Yu Darvish has them to thank, and it could work out like that, where he is dominant into like his age 40 season. So it's not necessarily as bad as like signing a shortstop, second baseman, well, definitely not catcher, but center fielder, any outfielder into their age 42 season, because those positions age a lot differently than a starting pitcher, it seems. My third takeaway is one thing that you pointed out. They don't have reinforcements coming from below. The Padres have been, for many years they were touted as one of the most, one of the best farm systems in baseball. They've all either come up or been traded now, and a lot of them didn't work out, unfortunately, for the Padres. But yeah, they don't really have any reinforcements. Beyond this year, it's really just Joe Musgrove and no one else. So maybe taking a risk on Yu Darvish makes a lot more sense. Say if I don't know, I'm trying to think of a team with say if the Orioles did this for some reason, it might not make as much sense because they have better reinforcements and a better farm system. Whereas, the Padres are kind of like left in the dust. So it makes more sense. It makes more sense to invest in a guy who's going to be in his later years, knowing that, who knows when you're going to get your next Yu Darvish-like pitcher, because it's not going to be soon.
Exactly. One thing that I'm very curious about is I want to know if the Padres, like the front office, was in any way influenced by the turnout at their fan fest, because I'm sure you saw it, Chris. I mean, the place was, I don't know if you saw the tweet of like the side by side with like the 2015 Padres fan fest and the 2023 one, where there was like 10 times as many people at the 2023 one, and
yeah,
a lot of people had the takeaway of like, this is what happens when you invest in your team. I really want to know, because this extension happened a week after that, so I really am curious to know if there was any sort of takeaway in the front office being like, all right, people like when we do this, let's just keep going.
Yeah,
right. I don't think I don't know if it's probably not the only reason why a Yu Darvish extension happened, but I don't think it's a non-factor either.
Yeah, like I think the team, especially after going deep into the playoffs last year, I think the team is getting more celebrated. And yeah, I think they seem to like Yu Darvish. He's had, he just had a good season. Didn't have the greatest 2021, but he just had a good season and had some good starts in the playoffs too. But I think the positive reinforcement is even if it's a very very small factor, it's a factor.
Yeah, no doubt.
And yeah, like they and it works out for the Padres here because there's not as much positional depth. They have plenty of position players, have plenty of guys in the lineup right now. Um, but they started Mike Clevenger game 4 of the NLCS last year, and
Yeah.
now he's even gone. But
Well, I mean, gone is in multiple ways.
Yeah,
but, you know.
but there's not. Sean Manaea was coming out of the bullpen.
Mm-hmm.
He wasn't what they wished him to be. Mike Clevenger wasn't what the Padres wished him to be. They traded Mackenzie Gore, who probably also wasn't going to be what they wished him to be. So
He had some promise, and then he kind of fell off in
Yeah.
June or so.
yeah, who knows with him, but it would have probably taken him a couple years to develop into like a solid, trustworthy starter. But yeah, given that there's not a lot of options, it makes more sense. It makes me curious if they're more willing to let Blake Snell go now, and I wonder what his contract will look like. Whatever team picks him up, because I imagine it would be a lot more than this deal, the Yu Darvish deal, considering he's younger.
The starting pitcher market on the free agency is interesting next year because it's Shohei Ohtani, who's like his own market. There's no, I don't think there's any pitcher being like, see that Shohei got that.
Yeah.
Now I'm going off that. Like nobody's doing that. But
Right.
it's like Aaron Nola, Blake Snell, and that's kind of it. Julio Urias too. I guess Julio Urias. I forgot about him.
Mm.
But I don't know. It feels weird. I feel like he's still like 25 years old. Feels
Yeah.
weird that he's a free agent.
Yeah. Also, yeah, true. I remember when.
I was at his first career start.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. It
Yeah.
was also David Wright's last career home run.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's fun.
Same game.
But yeah, I remember him winning Cy Young, and still people didn't really know too much about him
Yep.
yet. But yeah, interesting career journey. He'll be Blake Snell will be a free agent after next year. But yeah, anything more on the Yu Darvish deal?
I think that was all I had. That was a good back and forth there.
Yeah. So, yeah. Yep. All right. So now we'll get into the NL Central preview with players to watch. Also, with each team, we kind of go over basically the state of the team, who they lost, who they added.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll start from the
Who are we starting with? Because two teams finished tied for last.
Yeah, I'm just starting with the Pirates, I guess.
Okay.
So I know in fighting, if you fight to a draw, the person who had the belt originally keeps the belt.
The belt.
So the Pirates are the reigning defending NL Central last place
That's
champs.
fair. I don't know. To me, the Reds felt more like a last place team than the Padres did last year.
Or the Pirates?
Or the Pirates. Well, definitely the Padres.
Oh, yeah. Well, I know the Pirates will definitely at the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
Let's look at the Pythagoreans, because I know the Pirates were based on the Pythagorean were
they were
58
supposed to be better. Or no, they were supposed to be worse.
58 and 104, and the Reds 64 and 98.
Okay, fair enough.
So yeah, we'll do Pirates to start.
Yeah, I'm down.
But yeah, the Reds you could be first next year if you try hard enough. But yeah, the Pirates,
They tried really hard last year.
they did.
They went all out.
Yeah, they really did. But the Pirates went 62 and 100 last year, finished tied for last in the NL Central, as we just prefaced. In terms of subtractions, I mean, just so many. Kevin Newman, they lost. They lost a lot of like Pirates starters, but I don't know what they'll do, in the rest of the league. But they lost Kevin Newman, Ben Gamel, Michael Chavis, Tyler Beatty, Josh Van Meter, Greg Allen, Manny Benuelos and Hoy Park. They added some guys that can play baseball. They added Andrew McCutcheon, G-Man Choi, Carlos Santana, Austin Hedges, Vince Velasquez, Rich Hill, and Yarlene Garcia. Who is your Pirates player to watch?
So I actually have two.
Awesome.
There are a couple teams where I have two. The Pirates are one of them. I think this is a really interesting team. They have a lot of intriguing pieces, and two of them I'm about to name you. One of them is Luis Ortiz. He is a starting pitcher, one of the top prospects in their system. He's like a fringe top 100 guy, and he got some time in the majors last year. In 16 innings pitched in 2022, he allowed 42 batted balls and an opponent's sweet spot percentage of just 26%, which is among the best in baseball. That usually gets you like at the top of the leaderboards. He also allowed only one barrel out of those 42 batted balls and a hard hit rate against of 31%. Now, the important thing to know about Luis Ortiz is that he throws gas. 114 out of his 159 fastballs thrown were at least 98 miles an hour. The only pitchers to have a higher rate than that last year were Yohan Duran, Andres Munoz, Pete Fairbanks, Ryan Helsley, Felix Bautista, Edwin Diaz, Jacob deGrom, Gregory Soto, and Hunter Green. All of those guys are certified flamethrowers. The one difference with Luis Ortiz is that he didn't have the control that the other guys had. And that's obviously where he needs to improve. 61% of the fastballs he threw last year were either outside the strike zone or in game day zone 5, which means it was right down the middle. It's not where you want to put it. As a result, he had 5.6 walks per 9 last year. But the potential is there. He had a lot of strikeouts as well. Didn't allow any type of hard contact. So that's why I'm looking at Luis Ortiz for this year.
Yeah.
My other Pirate to watch is a guy who has not played in the majors yet. It's Endy Rodriguez, who is a prospect. He was, I think, number 25 overall on Baseball America, and he was 55 on Prospectus and Pipeline. So he's not, a consensus top prospect, but he's there. He was actually acquired in the Joe Musgrove trade from the Mets. And he was born the day after me, so that's pretty cool.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Fangraphs lists him as a catcher/left fielder/second baseman, which is very fun.
Yeah.
Last year, in 531 minor league plate appearances at 3 different levels at High A, Double A, and Triple A, he slashed 323, 407, 590 for a 996 OPS. He had the 4th highest weighted runs created plus, which was 166, of anyone who played at any of the top 4 levels within the minor leagues. Fangraphs gives him a 70-grade hit tool for his future value, which is tied for the highest they've given anyone so far. They've only revealed like 10 teams or so. But as of right now, Endy Rodriguez is among the top hitters that they've projected. So my 2 Pirates to watch are Luis Ortiz and Endy Rodriguez.
Yeah. So yeah, it didn't take long this year.
No way.
My
You were looking
Pirates,
at me. You were giving me that look.
My Pirates player to watch. Yeah, it's just that look of like defeat. And you also, I think you dug more deep into our guy. My player to watch is also Endy Rodriguez.
Yep.
So yeah, ironically enough, highest ranked catching prospect for the Pirates.
Yep.
If you don't know, they drafted a catcher number 1 overall in 2021.
And that's not to say that Henry Davis isn't good.
Yeah, it's just this guy's pretty. Obviously 4th in weighted runs created plus at all levels of minor league baseball last year. That's pretty crazy. Number 2 overall Pirates prospect, number 55 overall MLB prospect according to Pipeline. He's 22, so he'll probably get some more time this year. Also plays second base and outfield, as you mentioned. And yeah, he hit 323 with a 997 OPS in 125 minor league games last year.
We have a different OPS.
Oh,
I guess you rounded up, because for me, Fangraphs said 996.
Oh yeah, no, I got it from
Baseball Reference.
MLB.com.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so yeah. Yeah, Endy Rodriguez should be interesting. It probably won't be hard for him to find a position on the field and find playing time because he apparently can play a lot of different positions. And yeah, he's interesting. And I mean, a 997 OPS in the minors, like this guy should be able to hit the ball pretty well. So yeah, I guess an intriguing, exciting young 22-year-old guy. who should be potentially exciting for the Pirates for years to come.
The Pirates as a whole, look very interesting. I mean, if you look at their lineup right now, it's O'Neal Cruz, Brian Reynolds, Ke'Bryan Hayes, G-Man Choi, Andrew McCutchen, Carlos Santana, Jack Sawinski, Rodolfo Castro, Austin Hedges.
Yeah,
That's not a bad lineup. It's not great, but it's not a bad lineup at all.
yeah. There's like actual serviceable.
Yeah. And then you
players.
put guys like Andy Rodriguez in there. Maybe some other guys might get some more time this year. Maybe Nick Gonzalez gets time this year. Leover Peguero might get some time this year. So they got some interesting guys for sure.
Yeah, the lineup definitely looks more intriguing.
I do worry about Andy getting his service time manipulated and not
Yeah.
being down there for super long because the Pirates notoriously do that
Yeah,
famously more than anyone else.
true.
He played 6 games in AAA last year, so I think regardless of the team, he's probably starting there next year.
Mm.
Except for like maybe the Braves. That's like the only team that I think would call him up in that scenario.
Right.
But yeah, I'm hoping we can see him in like May or June.
Yeah.
Get him like 400 plate appearances or so.
Right. Exactly.
That'd be really exciting.
Exactly. Yeah. It's always good for a younger guy in a rebuilding team to come up and maybe make some noise. What is your question
Yes.
for the Pirates?
So my question, which is more likely? Mitch Keller produces an ERA below 3.45. He had a 3.91 last year.
Mhm.
Or O'Neal Cruz leads the majors in average exit velocity.
I'd say I'd definitely give it to O'Neal Cruz.
Yeah.
I don't think he led in average exit velocity last year.
He was 91st percentile.
Yeah, but he does also, he has the hardest hit ball in the Statcast era ever.
Mm-hmm.
And Mitch Keller, I don't know, and I don't know if the offensive environment is going to be as
Prominent.
or the offensive environment is going to be as soft as last year, so it might make it harder. But I don't know. Pirates pitching in general, I'm very iffy on.
Yeah.
This year. But yeah. So my question also, mentions one of the guys you mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty straight up, will O'Neal Cruz have over or under a 125 OPS plus? I believe he was at 107 last year.
He was at 107 last year, and that was with a lot of struggles. He struck out a ton last year.
Yeah.
His strikeout rate was like 35-40%.
Yeah.
I'm inclined to believe that goes down. I hope that he can maybe get some more plate discipline in as well, and I also think that just in general he'll be better. So I'll take the over on 125.
Yeah. Yeah. It seems
Yeah.
not too ridiculous a number to have there. Although, yeah, the strikeouts are probably the biggest thing in
Yes.
the way for him right now.
I mean, we saw the flashes of potential though. I mean, he homered off the Grom slider.
yeah.
That on a pitch that wasn't even in the zone.
yeah.
Like that tells you everything you need to know about O'Neal Cruz.
Yeah, he's pretty stellar for sure.
Yes.
All right, so now we will lead to the Cincinnati Reds, Big Red Machine. Yeah. They went 62 and 100 last year, finished tied for last in the NL Central with the Pittsburgh Pirates. Nothing really happened for them in the offseason in terms of subtractions or additions.
They got Will Myers.
They lost Donovan Solano, Donnie Barrels, Aristides Aquino, who I think is playing in a different country now.
Yeah, August 2019 legend.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely.
The Punisher.
And they also lost Mike Moustakas, who's more of a name. He didn't really produce anything for them last year. The Reds added Will Myers, as you mentioned, Chad Pinder, who we know David Kilburn is going to be very fond of.
Do you think he even knows?
No. They also
Maybe
added Kurt Casale and Luke Maley. And yeah, I'll start with my Reds player to watch, as we'll kind of zigzag it here. My guy, I guess it's more on the obvious side than we usually do.
Mm-hmm.
But it's hard to pick out a guy. But this guy is particularly outstanding, even though he is a reliever. It's Edwin Diaz's brother, Alexis Diaz.
It's a good call.
Who last year had a 1.84 ERA, 2.76 expected ERA, and a 32.5% strikeout rate in 63 and 2/3 innings pitched. A very full reliever season with a sub-2 ERA. Extremely good. And not only did he strike out guys at an extremely high rate, he didn't allow hard contact. His average exit velocity was in the 85th percentile. His expected ERA was in the 89th percentile. His expected batting average against was in the 99th percentile. Also, his whiff rate was in the 97th percentile, and his fastball spin was in the 100th percentile. That fastball spin is important to note with my next stat because he had a below-average sweet spot percentage against, had a line drive rate about 5 percentage points below average, and had an 11.9% pop-up rate. That 11.9% pop-up rate was top 6% among pitchers with 100-plus batted balls. So, him having the best fastball spin rate contributes to that because, a higher spin rate means the ball is less affected by gravity than anyone else in the league. So it's staying up the most amount. So it has what they call more ride. It's going up higher than a normal fastball is. So that's why guys are getting under it and popping it up, which is a very good sign. Most of the, Christian Javier is also a guy with a high fastball spin rate, and he has like the highest pop-up rate in the league. And pop-ups are the best out of pop-ups, line drives, grounders, and fly balls. Pop-ups produce the best results for pitchers. It's like an 0.20 slugging percentage against, and it's usually those ones that just fall in the middle that are like should be errors, but you can't count it as an error.
Mm-hmm.
But
no one earns a hit on a pop-up.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, so Alexis Diaz is my 2023 Reds player to watch. Who is yours?
It's a good pick, Chris. So I figured Hunter Green would be a little on the obvious side, so I decided to stay away from him. I instead went with the other young Reds starting pitcher, a guy that was one of my how about that's late last season. I'm going with Nick Lodolo as my Reds player to watch. He ended the season really strong last year. From August 17th through the end, we were in Baltimore that day, he produced a 2.75 ERA and a 3.45 FIP. In 55 and 2/3 innings pitched. He ranked 17th among qualifiers in ERA, 10th in Sierra, which means he did a very good job of strikeout to walk ratio while also allowing ground balls at a stellar rate. And he was 7th in opponent's batting average at 182. During this span, he upped the usage on his curveball from 23.4% to 34.7%. So he upped his curveball usage by about 50%, a little less than that. And he threw the most curveballs in the majors from August 17th on at 305. Adam Wainwright was just behind him at 300. Among the 32 pitchers to throw at least 150 curveballs over this time, Lodolo's curve had the lowest average, opponent's average at 103, the 7th lowest opponent's slugging at 191, and the 6th highest swing and miss rate at 22.3%. His curveball had a 9.4% line drive rate.
Wow.
That's insane. And an 18.8% pop-up rate, like you mentioned earlier. Lodolo threw his curveball 42.3% of the time against lefties throughout the season. We're out of the August 17th stretch. Just throughout the season, Lodolo threw his curve 42.3% of the time to lefties. That's the 17th highest rate among the 195 pitchers to have thrown at least 50 curveballs to lefties. So he was 17th out of 195 in the rate at which he threw curves to lefties. And it paid off because left-handed opponents slugged and hit 0.48 against his curveball. They got a hit less than 1 in 20 times. They didn't record a single extra base hit. So Nick Lodolo has a lot going for him, and I think he is due for a breakout this year.
He was definitely he was definitely someone who kind of popped out to me looking at the team reference page. Yeah.
Yes.
Over 11 strikeouts per 9 last year. He was definitely a lot of potential with him. I think he's going into his age 25 season too.
Yes, he is. He's one of those three.
Yep.
I do think that Hunter Green has the higher ceiling between the two. I think at his peak, he's a Cy Young candidate.
Yeah.
Lodolo needs a little bit more to get there, I'd say, but
yeah.
I wanted to go with the less obvious of the two.
Yeah, and perfectly leads right into my next question,
Yeah.
which is who will have the better season, Hunter Green or Nick Lodolo?
I will take Hunter Green. I know that I chose Lodolo as my player to watch, but I think Hunter Green is a guy to be very excited about. And that also leads into my question. So Hunter Green threw 125 and 2/3 innings pitched as a starter last year. Obviously a low number for a guy that you expect to be starting throughout the season. He threw 337 pitches that were above 100 miles an hour. Does he get to 500 this year?
500. All right. Let me calculate a little bit of math, because if he did the same rate per inning, so that means 125 innings, that means he threw 2.7 per inning last year. So if I multiply that by 500, or no, or wait, I got to do it the other way.
I was saying that doesn't sound like it.
Yeah.
He has to throw 200 innings. Oh no.
125 divided by 337 times 500. It would put him at 185 innings. And also, the rate could change. He could throw harder next year. He could throw softer next year. Who knows? I would say he does not get to 500.
Okay.
But I think he'll get close.
Yeah.
I think he'll get
My
pretty close.
my initial question was just going to be, does he break the record in a single season? And then I found out it was 2018 Jordan Hicks at 673. And I was like, well, he's not getting there.
Yeah.
Because it makes sense, because Hicks just only threw his fastball. Green, as a starter, has to have a more diverse arsenal.
Yeah. I think Green is going to qualify. I think he'll make probably close to 30 starts. But also, getting to 180 innings these days is it's quite a bit. It's quite an accomplishment. So I think as a younger guy who the Reds have no reason not to be cautious with right now, since they're not really a winning team, he'll get a little bit of less of a workload. But yeah, I think he'll get close to 500.
Great.
All right, so that leads us to the
Chicago Cubs.
The Chicago Cubs from Wrigleyville. I just closed my phone. The Cubs, they went 74 and 88 last year. They finished third in the NL Central. They lost Franmil Reyes, Rafael Ortega, and Jason Hayward. They added quite a bit. They added Dansby Swanson, Jamison Tyon, Trey Mancini, Cody Bellinger, Brad Boxberger, Eric Hosmer, Tucker Barnhart, Luis Torrens, and Tyler Duffy. Who's your player to watch from the Chicago Cubs?
I'm sticking with the youth here, obviously. Going with a guy who looked really, really good in his short time with the Cubs last year. I'm talking about Hayden Wesneski. He looked awesome for the Cubs in 33 innings pitched last year. He had a 2.18 ERA and a 3.20 FIP. He only made 6 career starts, but he became the second pitcher in baseball history with 5 innings pitched, 6 strikeouts, and one or less earned run and 1 or less walk in 3 of their first 6 career starts. The other person to do that was Bert Blyleven.
Wow.
It's just Bert Blyleven, and it's Hayden Wesneski, and that's it. From the date he debuted through the end of the season, that was September 6th, Wesneski had the second lowest xWOBA among the 94 pitchers with at least 400 pitches thrown. That means expected ERA as well. The only person who had it better was Christian Javier. His hard hit rate, which was 27%, ranked 6th lowest among the 143 pitchers with at least 50 batted balls given up during that time. And also his 2 most commonly used pitches, which were his slider and his four-seamer, respectively had an expected batting average of 154 and 102. The 102 expected batting average against his four-seamer was the second lowest among the 469 pitchers to have at least 25 plate appearances and on a four-seamer. Wow. So Hayden Wesneski looked really awesome. Peripherally, he was great. Just regular, if we're going by regular counting stats and basic stuff, he was great, and he's a guy to watch out for. Interestingly, Fangraphs does not have him on the opening day roster right now. I think David Ross would be willing to pull that trigger and put him on there.
Yeah, it would be weird not to have him out there. Although, I guess they did just sign a pitcher, but I don't know if it's served.
Would you rather have Adrian Sampson out there?
Yeah, I don't know.
To be fair, he wasn't bad last year.
He had a 3.11 ERA, but don't look at the other stuff. Don't look at the peripherals.
Yeah.
So yeah, I have I figured you'd go with him because you mentioned him at the
Yeah.
end of last year. My Cubs player to watch was how about that of mine, um, like late summer. They have Wisniewski, they have Marcus Stroman who was signed to a big deal last year, and they just signed Tyon to a big deal. But I think this guy's if I had to predict, I think this guy's going to be the best Cubs pitcher this upcoming year, and that's Justin Steele.
I would agree.
He's 27 years old. He had a 3.18 ERA, 3.20 FIP, and 3.59 expected ERA, and 24.6% strikeout rate last year. In his final 10 starts of 2022, he had a 1.49 ERA, 2.76 FIP, and a 28.8% strikeout rate. In that span, he was second in ERA and ninth in strikeout rate. That was a 10-start span. And over the whole season, he had an 87.1 mile per hour average exit velocity against, which is pretty low, and a very minuscule 3.9% barrel rate against, which put him 80th and 95th percentile in those respective categories. Justin Steele also had a 51.9% ground ball rate, which out of 155 pitchers with 250 plus batted balls against them, that ground ball rate ranked 15th, top 10% ground ball rate from Justin Steele. Hitters also hit 136 and slugged 216 off of his slider, which he used 31% of the time. Out of 85 pitchers to throw 500 plus sliders in 2022, Steele had the sixth lowest batting average and sixth lowest slugging percentage against on that pitch. So his slider was very effective, got good results. He has a very high strikeout rate, soft contact against him, and he's also only 27. So hopefully should be getting even better than he was last year. So definitely a guy to look out for. I think he missed the last month of the year last year, so hopefully that injury doesn't
linger.
Isn't a lingering thing. But yeah, a guy to look out for. And yeah, I think we would both predict would probably be the best pitcher. Should be the best pitcher for the Cubs in 2023.
I feel like he probably has the highest upside of everyone.
Yeah.
In Chicago's rotation at least.
Yeah, like he has. Yeah, the strikeout numbers are surprising considering also he doesn't throw too hard, but he still gets strikeouts.
I mean, the Cubs they've created a culture of guys that don't throw too hard.
Yeah, it's
like
Steele.
The only real outlier throughout their recent history is Aroldis Chapman for 2 months.
Yeah, yeah, that's very true. What is your question regarding the Cubs?
So this is something we've talked pretty well about over the offseason, and I think it's a pretty fitting question. I could probably say the first part of the question, and I think you'll know the two players I'm talking about. Who will live up to their contract more this year?
Oh, is it Swanson or Tyon?
Yep.
Who will live more up to their contract? Well,
it's interesting because they have very different standards to live up to said contracts.
Yeah, I would say Tyon got overpaid more. However, Swanson has a much bigger deal in years and total value and approximate average annual value. That's what I meant to say. Because Swanson's getting paid $25 million a year. Tyon is getting paid $17 million a year. So who's going to live up to that more? I think it's going to be. I think it'll be. That's a tough question. I think it'll be Dansby Swanson. I think he's just overall a better player. However, I think Tyon, going back to the NL Central, I think there's maybe a little bit, I don't think it'll be a disaster contract necessarily, even though I think it has a big potential to be. But, him going back to the NL Central, some weaker offenses, it might work out a little bit better, but I think Dansby Swanson will live up to the contract a little bit better. My question is also regarding Dansby Swanson.
Nice.
So Swanson had 3.4 F4 in 2021 and 6.4 F4 in 2022. Halfway point of that is 4.9. Will he be over or under 4.9 F4 in 2023?
I'm going to take the under. I mean, I think he was very, his F4 was very carried by his defense last year. And he put himself at such a high standard to be able to replicate that. I think it's pretty easy to say that 2022 will have been his best statistical season.
Yeah.
4.9 though, that is a lot to live up to. That's like an all-star type of player.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't. I'm thinking he gets more in like the 4 to 4.5 range. I think he's just barely under.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is, still a good player for sure. But yeah, it's last year was weird, and sometimes StatCast with outs above average can just be kind of random sometimes.
Yeah.
Defense is hard to evaluate. All right, so that leads us to Milwaukee with the Brewers, who they went 86 and 76 last year and finished second in the NL Central. They just trailed the Phillies for the 7th seed of the wild card. And, to put it bluntly, had a rough offseason too. They lost Colton Wong, Hunter Renfroe, Andrew McCutchen, Jace Peterson, Taylor Rogers, Brad Boxberger, Omar Narvaez, and Brent Suter. The last two weren't really big contributors last year. The Brewers added Jesse Winker, William Contreras, Abraham Toro, Wade Miley, and Owen Miller. And I'll start with my Brewers player to watch. He's a little bit higher profile, but I think he might, specifically this year, might do a little bit better because of some rule changes that went on. I'm talking about Rowdy Tellez. He had the third highest OPS on the Brewers last year, and the two above him were Hunter Renfroe and Colton Wong, who are gone.
More like Colton gone.
More like Colton Gong. Colton Wong. Whoops. More like Colton Wong or
More like his actual name.
More like Colton Gone.
Yeah, you did it.
Colton Gone. More like Colton Gone. Okay.
Yeah.
They are both gone. And Rowdy Tellez, among the 81 hitters with 400 plus batted balls last year, he had the second unluckiest difference in batting average and expected batting average. He was behind Corey Seager, and much like Seager, Tellez had trouble against the shift. Tellez was shifted against 79.9% of the time last year, and when he was shifted against and he hit the ball straight away, he was expected to have a 363 batting average, but only hit 267 on those batted balls. He hit 121 ground balls, either pulled or hit straight away against the shift, and he hit 099 on those ground balls. The league average on ground balls last year was 241. So if he had league average results on ground balls if he had league average results on ground balls pulled or hit straight away against the shift, he would have 17 more hits last year. So there's potential for him to, increase his batting average by a lot, and therefore his on-base percentage by a lot, by there not being a shift at all this upcoming year. So, you could argue behind Corey Seager, he was like second most affected against the shift. So he's someone to look out for to maybe, increase his offensive numbers because of the shift going away. Who is your Brewers player to watch?
My Brewers player to watch is another person on offense. I like that pick a lot, by the way.
Thank you.
Because Corey Seager's been getting so much attention.
Yeah.
Rowdy Tellez is like the guy right behind him.
Yep.
So, I mean, my pick is an offensive player on the Brewers. I think we all know that that's their issue. They have stellar rotation, really good bullpen. And I think their best offensive player this year might have been an addition. I'm talking about William Contreras.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's a guy that, first of all, his 138 weighted runs created plus last season would have led the Brewers. And I'm not just talking about guys who qualified. I mean, anyone who stepped up to the plate at any time for the Brewers. Garrett Mitchell was their leader in weighted runs created plus at 136. And he had 62 plate appearances.
Yeah.
William Contreras still would have beat that in 376 plate appearances.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and they're getting a guy that will ideally put their offense at another level. And not only that, but the home run park factor for American Family Field was 117 last season. That means home runs were 17% above the average at that venue last year, compared to only 95 at Truist Park, where Contreras previously had played. So He's going to be in a more favorable ballpark for his type of offense and for a type of offense that can help the Brewers thrive a lot more, because that was their weakness last year throughout the entire season. The thing that he needs to do to take his game to the next level is to start lifting the ball, specifically on breaking balls. Contreras had a negative .9 degree launch angle on breaking balls last year. That was the lowest of the 281 hitters with at least 200 batted balls against breaking pitches. He had the lowest launch angle on the list of 281. So, naturally he needs to start lifting the ball on curveballs and sliders a lot more. That's where he can improve. Also, I found this interesting. In 60 games played as a catcher last year, William Contreras slashed 301, 396, 599, 995. That is MVP type offense right there. In 34 games at DH, he slashed 235, 281, 353, 634. So he was a replacement level player as a DH. And in this case, it's good that the Brewers have a guy like Jesse Winker, who is a pretty prominent DH, a guy that's going to be there most of the time. Obviously, as a catcher, if you have your catcher as an everyday player, you can't just put him at catcher every day. Like, he's going to have to play DH. But it's good that the Brewers have a certified DH that'll be there most of the time.
Yeah.
So William Contreras, I think he has a chance to be the number one player in this Brewers offense, and those are the things he needs to do better.
Yeah. That was a sneaky good pickup. I think.
Mm-hmm. They got him for like nothing.
Yeah, that was the crazy part. It was like it was known as the Sean Murphy deal because Sean Murphy was the best. Was the best player in that deal. He went to the Braves. But yeah, William Contreras just randomly gets put on the Brewers, and the A's get fleeced, which was kind of the takeaway from it all.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we don't forget about the Brewers getting William Contreras because that was pretty big. So my question to you, maybe I should have included your player to watch in this question, but I put specifically these two. I guess left-handed power hitters. Who will have more extra base hits, Rowdy Tellez or Jesse Winker?
Ooh. Honestly, I think you've convinced me on Tellez. Winker has got a lot to come back from this year. He was reportedly a clubhouse issue and also just a non-field issue statistically last year. Is he still serving a suspension, or did he get finished with that? I think that was Anthony Rendon.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if you saw this, but the Angels took him off the IL last year, even though he was very hurt at the end of the year, just so he could serve a suspension.
That's really smart.
Why not? Like, they were already out of it.
Yeah.
I'll take Tellez. I think that ballpark will play very well to him, as it will with Winker. That's a guy that I think is a good comeback candidate, but I'll take Tellez there.
Yep. Very fair. Both. Tellez can hit the ball hard.
Yeah.
He killed the Red Sox when he was with the Blue Jays.
My question. This is a fun one. Who strikes out more batters, Wade Miley or Devin Williams?
This is another one where I feel like I have to do math. So I figure Williams will strike out like 14 per 9, and maybe Miley will strike out 6 to 7 per 9. So will Williams get to half as many innings as Wade Miley is kind of the issue there.
Yeah.
And I don't know. Like, Wade Miley, I think he's a guy that...
This is like, you're not just like... Wade Miley's going to be in the opening day rotation. Will he be there the whole season? I don't know.
Right. And I feel like he's been good at getting innings usually. Yes. I think he led the 2015 Red Sox in innings.
That was 8 years ago.
It was 8 years ago.
He's done well since as well.
Oh, only 37 innings last year, but 162 the year before. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll take Devin Williams.
Okay.
I think he'll edge him out because I think Miley will get maybe 110 innings, and Williams will get around 60 to 70.
Yeah.
And it's like double the strikeout rate.
I enjoyed writing that question.
I enjoy it. I enjoyed when it came out of your mouth for sure. That was very funny. All right, so now we move on to our final team of the day, the reigning defending NL Central champion St. Louis Cardinals, who went 93-69 to win the NL Central last year. Got swept in the wild card round by the Phillies. They lost Albert Pujols, Jose Quintana, Yadier Molina, and Corey Dickerson. They added Wilson Contreras and Oscar Mercado. Was kind of the only
And they
significant
had
one.
Oscar Mercado. Oh yeah, they did add Oscar Mercado. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
but Wilson Contreras is the main guy that they added for 5 years and 80 million. But yeah, the Cardinals coming in defending champs. Who do you got for a player to watch?
Well, you know who I got
I
for a
do- I
player
do
to
know
watch.
who you-
This is I've been meaning to write about this guy. I will. I just haven't had the time. But I'm talking about one of my favorite players in the league, Andre Palante. I hyped him up a lot last year during the season. I've been kind of quiet about him during the offseason because I'm trying to write about him, but I'm breaking my silence here. This is the man with the four-seam sinker. Never before that's not true. Not never before seen. But he had the second highest ground ball rate in the majors last year among the 184 pitchers with at least 200 batted balls against. He had a 65% ground ball rate. Framber Valdez, of course, had a 67%, which was above him. But still, he's only 2 points behind Valdez. That's
Yeah.
crazy. His four-seamer produced an average launch angle of negative 9.8 degrees. That's the lowest in any season since 2015 in which a pitcher had at least 150 batted balls against their four-seamer. And by the way, that's the lowest of 484 seasons. If you went by just 2022, he was the only pitcher to produce a negative launch angle on his four-seamer, and it was negative 9.8 degrees. Which is hilarious.
Wow.
Palante's fastball in September/October produced the second lowest launch angle of the 3,936 months since 2015, where a pitcher had at least 25 batted balls against their fastball. It was negative 15.8 degrees. The only person with a lower launch angle in any month was Tyler Rogers, who throws underhand.
Yeah, sidearm guy.
Yes. Palante also had, in other months in 2022 for Palante, produced the 4th, 9th, 14th, and 15th lowest launch angles on that list as well. Last year, opponents hit 293 against his fastball, which included a 324 BABIP, so there was a bit of misfortune for him there, although he did have a high average exit velocity against it. But nonetheless, it had a 263 expected batting average, so he did see some misfortunes on that fastball, but other than that, he is... in every sense of the word, a ground god. He is a starter-reliever combo, but I think he works better as a reliever, so I hope that's the role that he plays for the Cardinals this year. He'll also be playing on Team Italy in the World Baseball Classic, so you can catch some of that action before opening day.
Yeah.
On the national stage.
Yeah. For those
international stage, actually.
For those who maybe are new to us, we kind of have grown like an obsession with very specifically ground ball pitchers.
Yes.
Because
or pop fly pitchers.
Or like pop fly pitchers because like I don't know, it's just fun to point out the specialties like that. So guys like Framber Valdez and Andre Palante are guys we look at for sure. And yeah, it works out tremendously because I think the average slugging percentage on ground balls is like 270 or something, so works out.
Makes sense. You don't hit more than a double usually on ground balls. Sometimes a triple, never a home run.
Yep. So yeah, my player to watch, I changed it from what it was earlier in the week because they just added this guy. I don't know if he's gonna make any like MLB contributions this year.
Oh boy, so this is a risk.
This is a big risk. I could have gone more obvious. The other candidate was Lars Nootbaar, who I thought was kind of
that is a little obvious.
It's a little more obvious, but this guy, he popped off the sheet for me because I was looking at Royals players to watch. But he actually was he was purchased by the St. Louis Cardinals off the Royals just on February 8th.
Oh boy.
But yeah, he got sent. So this guy Anthony Miezowitz, he got sent down by the Mariners in June last year.
Yeah.
He went to the Royals and was purchased by the Cardinals less than a week ago. So he had a 14% strikeout rate with the Mariners against 57 batters. But then, after going to the Royals, had a 30% strikeout rate with the Royals against 64 batters. Also, his whiff rate went from 21% to 27%. The big difference I could find was average four-seam fastball velocity. His average four-seam fastball velocity went from 92.5 miles per hour with the Mariners to 94.3 miles per hour with the Royals. So a 1.8 mile per hour four-seam fastball velocity difference with the Royals last year. For some reason, the Royals, don't want to deal with him. They probably know a lot more than I do, given I've just looked at Baseball Savant a couple of times.
Yeah.
But this is like my biggest probably shot in the dark, with the Cardinal or with players to watch, but he's a lefty reliever and he had a 30% strikeout rate with the Royals last year, while also walking at like less than an 8% rate. So he has control of the baseball, and he increased his fastball velocity by like 2 miles per hour in the middle of last year. So who knows? We'll see if he can carry that in. I don't know if he'll make the MLB roster out of spring training, but
Yeah.
just it's a one where I could only make this early in spring training while
Yep.
rosters are not being finalized. Yeah. So yeah, what is your
My
question?
So, the last time a pitcher threw 175 plus innings and had an above average ERA plus at age 41 or older was R.A. Dickey in 2017. Will Adam Wainwright add to that list this year? 175 innings, above average ERA plus.
Above average ERA plus. And
He threw 190 innings last year.
So yeah, I think both of those are definitely like
And he had a 103 ERA plus.
yeah, both of those marks are possible for him, but also question marks, which is what makes this a good question. I think maybe I'm more confident on the innings than the ERA because he's getting a little bit older, and guys are hitting him a little bit better. I'm gonna say he doesn't do that.
Okay.
I think one of those numbers doesn't happen. But if you were to say, can he get to one of them? Sure. But I don't think he'll get both.
Interesting.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
What is your question?
My question was, who will have the better? Which young Cardinals outfielder will have the better recovery? Tyler O'Neill or Dylan Carlson?
Tyler O'Neill was my Cardinals player to watch last year.
Mhm.
It was one of my biggest flops because it was one of the most obvious guys that I went with, and he had an above average weighted runs created, or an average weighted runs created plus, due to some injury as well.
Yeah.
But he had some hot streaks here and there. Dylan Carlson, admittedly, I haven't looked too much into. I mean, he's kind of
He
just
was at around a 100 OPS plus
Yeah.
last year.
yeah. So he's what, like 24 now, and
Yeah.
O'Neill strikes out a lot and doesn't walk a lot. So his play really depends on if he hits the ball well, specifically if he drives the ball. Carlson, I think, has a little bit of a more diverse skill set.
Yeah.
That's just me going off the top of my head. Let me look into him real quick. Is it allowed to? Am I allowed to look at Baseball Reference pages while I
Yeah.
make these picks?
I
Okay.
think I did.
All right. He's 23.
We can make educated guesses around
Yeah.
here.
You know what? I'm gonna go with Dylan Carlson.
Nice.
I think that's a bit of a hot take, but he's gonna be 24 this year. It's gonna be his third full season. I think this is where we start to see it.
Yeah, fair enough.
He had a pretty good 2021 season. He finished third in the Rookie of the Year voting and had a 115 OPS plus. So I mean, I think 130 is a ceiling for this year.
Yeah, it would be interesting. Yeah, I mean, like, you can definitely say, I think with Tyler O'Neill, he has the most breakout potential, but he also has the most like flop potential. His what he can do in a season varies the most. Dylan Carlson maybe a little more consistent. So, I think that's what makes it an interesting topic to discuss.
Yeah, Carlson's strikeout rate went from 24.6% to 19.3% last season. His walk rate is just under 10%.
Nice.
So, yeah, I'm going to take Dylan Carlson here. I feel good about that pick.
Sounds good. All right. Well, I guess that takes us to the end of the episode. And yeah, it'll for our reveal of the division we'll be doing next year or next
year. Can't wait for the 2024 previews.
Next week. I'm pretty sure I know what it is, but I'm just double checking.
I know what it is.
Yeah, it's one of the baseball teams. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's that division.
Yep.
The The next division we'll be talking about, you could argue, is the best division in baseball. It's
Yeah,
the
you could.
NL East.
They've got 3 legitimate World Series contenders. One of them, the least powerful or the least strong on paper of them, went to the World Series last year.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's how good we're talking baseball here. And then we got the Marlins and Nationals.
Yeah. Yeah, you get the Nationals, who they've got
Players that play
C.J.
baseball.
Abrams.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
It sucks. But yeah, we'll be talking NL East next week, and that episode will probably be harder for us because it's hard to find under the radar guys on the
Yeah, I already got my guys.
on the Mets, Phillies, and it's Braves. But yeah, I think I've picked out players, but it could change.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is more difficult with them. But yeah, we'll be talking NL East next week. We hope you enjoyed this one. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify and want to check out the YouTube channel, it is called Above Replacement Radio.
Yeah.
And if you're listening on the YouTube channel and want to check out those feeds, go to Apple Podcasts and Spotify. It is called Above Replacement Radio, just like the YouTube channel. And if you want to follow us on social media, follow me on Twitter at Chris_Gianta. Follow me on Instagram at Chris Gianta, and follow Daniel on both Twitter and Instagram at Daniel_Curran, and follow the show Instagram at Above Replacement Radio for all the show needs. We hope you enjoyed this one, and we hope to see you next week, where we will be talking the National League East. We will see you then.
This conversation is over.